Get the...
I came into Five Nights at Freddy's 4 expecting it to explain what happened after Five Nights at Freddy's 3, how Mike Schmidt took down the evil Springtrap. Instead, I think it might explain the origins of the first 3 games. This game has a nightmare house, hospital imagery, a big old bite, a locked box, and one detail that made me rethink Golden Freddy completely. Hello all, and welcome to my channel. My name is Deanie, and today we're going to be diving into the world of Five Nights at Freddy's once again, this time with FNAF 4. The last game ended with a massive cliffhanger, with Springtrap, Golden Freddy, and the puppet still wandering around the world, so I wonder if that will be addressed in this game. This is part 6 of my series on solving FNAF completely blind, and while the previous videos are not required reading, I will be heavily building upon the theories I have created thus far. I'm not going to start this video with a recap of my thoughts and theories, rather I'll try and connect FNAF 4's story into the rest of my thoughts in the final theory section of this video. If you've been enjoying this series, consider subscribing. I've somehow gotten to 100 subscribers already, which was my stretch goal for the entire summer. So thank you so much. We blew past that a lot faster than I thought. So go big or go home. I'm trying to hit 250 subscribers before the end of the summer now, and I'd love to have you along for the rest of this journey. Also, please leave your theories and corrections in the comments, but keep spoilers limited to FNAF 1 through 4. Without further ado, let's jump right into the gameplay. The gameplay of this game is a lot different than the previous 3. There's no cameras, no motorized door, no mask, no music box. Instead, you run around a bedroom checking the halls for monsters, listening intently to make sure there's no breathing outside your door. It's a massive jump, with a new style of horror for this franchise. I'll start by summarizing the mechanics quickly. Bonnie and Chica come to the left and right doors of your bedroom respectively, and you can shine a light down the hall to scare them away. Unless, of course, they've already made it to the door, in which case you have to listen for their breathing, and if they are outside, close the door and wait for them to go away. If you shine your flashlight when they're at the door, they will jump scare you. They can also enter the room and scare you there, with Bonnie coming in himself and Chica sending her little cupcake after you. Foxy can similarly come down these hallways but will slink into your closet instead of waiting at the door. In the closet, you have to shut the door on him to revert him into this cute little plushie, otherwise he will jump scare you in the middle of the room. If you turn around, you can see your bed, becoming infested with these little tiny Freddy guys over time, and shining your light will make them go away. If enough time passes without you shining your light, Freddy will jump scare you. Those are the very basic mechanics of the game. You go around listening for breathing, shining your light on the tiny Freddys, and making sure Foxy doesn't poke his head out of the closet too much. Turning the gameplay of FNAF from almost entirely visual to now pretty much completely audio-driven is really creative, and I have to give my praises to the creator. This was a bold and really fun move. There's less ambiance than the other games, the silence only interrupted by your own footsteps and the breath of the monsters trying to kill you. For me, it upped the intensity of the gameplay by a lot. I was more tense in this game than any other FNAF game thus far. I say all this praise for the environment of the game being uniquely scary, but at the same time, this was, by and large, my least favorite of the games to actually play. The nights were very repetitive, and the competing sound effects at times made it very frustrating when I was trying to listen for breathing. The gameplay is certainly stripped down from FNAF 2 and 3, which I appreciate, but it felt like the nights went on just a bit too long. It was also really loud, to the point where I was more scared about hurting my ears than the animatronics themselves. You may say, turn down the volume, but if I did that, I wouldn't be able to hear the breathing that is necessary to notice in order to survive. Even so, I got through the game, and the environments, secrets, and story certainly kept me hooked. Next up, let's talk about the house itself. The house is really interesting. Again, it's a whole new setting for this franchise, which usually takes place in a security office. Based on our height, I imagine we are a child, and the details of the bedroom support that. The left side of the room has toys and a wardrobe, an alarm clock, and some strangely dark pictures on the wall. The right is similar, with toys and another cabinet and what looks like a picture of a kid near a big snowman. If you turn around, you'll see a pretty big bed with a nice wooden backboard, and a toy plushie of Freddy Fazbear. When there's not a monster in it, the closet is seemingly empty and plain. The left hall is incredibly normal, with a lamp and some drawers and pictures. The right hall is much the same, just with the addition of some windows. We also know that there's likely a kitchen area on the right side of the house because of the way the AI of Chica works, with her occasionally jumping into that room to make a bunch of pots and pans clattering sounds. That's a summary of the house, and at first glance, it seems pretty normal. But when I stop to think about it, this setting's weirdness became more than just its uniqueness from the previous games. This house is constructed extremely strangely. Two long hallways stretch down just to connect to the same bedroom. It's like this house is designed to be super long. Logically, this layout doesn't make any sense. It's not something you would see in real America, which is where I assume this series is taking place. There's odd smatterings of furniture and things that indicate a lived-in home, but it feels too clean, too symmetrical, like a memory of a child's bedroom. This house doesn't feel real. And if it's not real, what is it? One thing that struck me after going through the footage of this game was that it wasn't perhaps as unique as I once thought. Bonnie coming from the left hallway, Chica coming from the right, Freddy being a character that's hard to really see, only catching glimpses of him, Foxy hiding behind a barrier before coming out to kill you. Does this remind you of anything? Because it certainly reminds me of FNAF 1. This is very similar to that setup, now melded with the aesthetics of a child's bedroom, except that this bedroom is a death trap. There's no windows in the room, and the hiding places that one would resort to in this kind of situation, under the bed or in the closet, are hijacked by enemies. There's no escape out of the doors either, as Chica and Bonnie are out there waiting. It's a complete trap. No exits, and in the exact form of FNAF 1. What could this mean? I'll get into it more later on, but for now, let's talk about the animatronics of this game. So you know how I kept saying that the house doesn't really seem real? Like something is a bit off, like it doesn't feel like reality? Guess what the animatronics are called in this game? Nightmare animatronics. It's not concrete proof, but it does pretty heavily imply that the game itself is being played within the nightmare of somebody. Before talking about who, let's first talk about the animatronics themselves. To begin, let's examine Nightmare Freddy. Nightmare Freddy is actually pretty rare to see if you're vigilant about checking the bed and shining your light on what I'm now learning are called frettles. Frettles? Really? That's what we're calling the demonic teddy bears from hell? The frettles themselves are these deformed-looking Freddys that remind me of Scrappy-Doo from the live-action Scooby-Doo movie. We'll get into this, but them and all of the other nightmares have these double jaws with two sets of teeth. There's also some metallic skull pieces poking out and these very coiled up arms, possibly a representation of spring locks. Nightmare Freddy looks pretty similar, but with proper proportions and a lot more spikes. In his official render, we actually see the frettles climbing around him, which honestly I really love. That's a lot of fun. Pretty much all of the nightmares have the same visual style, with decaying skin, double teeth, and sharp fingers, brightly colored eyes, and wires poking out everywhere. So I'm going to focus on what's unique about each animatronic rather than list those same traits over and over again. Nightmare Foxy is super cool looking. He gets to keep his hook while also keeping his look from FNAF 1 and 2 with the exposed robotic legs. On the topic of previous games, when Foxy jump scares you, he will run towards you and then lunge, which is strikingly similar to FNAF 1's Foxy jump scare, running towards you, and FNAF 2's Foxy jump scare, lunging at you. Like it's a combination of both. Nightmare Chica looks psychotic. The combination of having only one eye illuminated and the very slight upturned grin that she has is super creepy. Her beak has been absolutely shattered with this design, torn open so the bottom doesn't even really exist, reminding me a lot of Withered Chica's destroyed jaw. She also has a companion, Nightmare Cupcake. Cupcake is only really seen in the render and when it jump scares you if Chica enters the room. I kind of love the cupcake. It's got the angriest look to it than any other animatronics, with its downturned eye sockets. The concept of the cupcake being the one to kill you in this game just really makes me happy. The last of the core four, Nightmare Bonnie, has a big bright red bow, which I think is a really neat addition. It kind of grabs your attention when he's at the door, and it takes just that much longer to register that you're about to be killed. He also has an open stomach for some reason, a slightly different design than the other three. The next two animatronics I want to talk about are not in the main game, but rather a side game called Fun with Plush Trap and Fun with Balloon Boy. In the first of these games, there's an animatronic doll thing called Plush Trap. It sits on a chair and it's your job to lure him onto the X on the floor. Plushtrap's design is very strange. Given its name, I think it's meant to be a version of Springtrap, not Spring Bonnie. If that's the case, he is a lot less menacing than the rest of the animatronics for some reason. He's small, limp, and has a noticeable blankness in his gaze. He doesn't even have the double jaws that the others have. He really just looks like an ugly doll that's been caked in gunk over the years. Nightmare Balloon Boy, on the other hand, is horrific. He has a similarly vacant stare, but also has these awful, fleshy salad fingers hands that really creep me out for some reason. I think this is probably the design that made me the most unsettled to look at because of those hands. Besides that, it's a balloon boy with a big fat head and double teeth like the others. I guess I should have mentioned this, but all of these animatronics are functionally impossible, and it's most obvious with Balloon Boy. There's no joint in his neck for his mouth to open, his head is just floating there. The next animatronic is very, very interesting. It shows up only on nights 5 and 6, and then animatronic is Nightmare Fredbear. He is seemingly larger than the rest of the normal Nightmare animatronics and can attack you from all sides, replacing every animatronic in the night. His teeth and claws are tinged red with blood, and there seems to be another mouth on his stomach. The glowing red eyes somehow makes this animatronic feel more alive and hostile towards the player. It's like the other animatronics just wanted to kill you, but this guy wants to make you suffer. This is also our first time seeing Fredbear with his name actually confirmed as Fredbear. Curiously, his hat and tie are purple, and not black like the old Golden Freddy suit. What this could mean, I don't know, but there has to be something more to this guy. The next animatronic works exactly the same as Nightmare Fredbear, and even looks quite similar, and only shows up on night 7. This animatronic is simply called Nightmare. It seems to be the same base model as Nightmare Fredbear, but with a black and yellow color scheme, the same color scheme as Golden Freddy. He also seems to be see-through at times, and jump scares you in quite a different fashion than the others. Instead of jumping at you and biting, a static screen shows up, with Nightmare's face zoomed in. This is a weird character, and the jump scare also reminds me of Golden Freddy in the first game. It's also worth noting that there are 6 animatronics that can hunt you in the bedroom now, perhaps representing the 6 possessed animatronics that we know of. I'm not sure, but this guy will certainly be revisited. Those are all of the animatronics in the base game of FNAF 4, but a Halloween update was released soon after the game's launch, and introduced some new players. I believe these are simply reskins of the animatronics in the base game, and not meant to impact the story at all, so I'll just be going over their designs for now. The first 2 replace Bonnie and Chica respectively, Jacko Bonnie and Jacko Chica. These guys are essentially the same design, but orange, and with a fiery glow coming from within, as well as some missing parts. Halloween is one of my favorite holidays, so I might be biased, but these guys are awesome. I love Halloween versions of things, and these pumpkin-looking weirdos are right up my alley. Also, the Nightmare Cupcake is replaced with a pumpkin, which is brilliant. Foxy is replaced with Nightmare Mangle. I'm a really big fan of how stupid this fella looks. The second head even got sharp teeth. Mangle was my favorite new design from FNAF 2, so I'm glad to see them back in action, but man, they look so goofy and ridiculous here. The last replacement is a bit more creepy. Nightmarione. Nightmarione replaces Nightmare, and is this horrible skeletal version of the puppet. All the color is sapped away, and there's only black and white. It has a similar jump scare as Nightmare, just a static screen with a close-up of its face. If I had to choose any design from this franchise to be a horror movie monster, it would be Nightmarione. This is a horrific creature. The ribs and weird bony limbs and the tentacle arms are so icky, and the face is just unsettling. I personally find the normal puppet face to be just a bit scarier, but this guy certainly gets the job done. Well, that is all of the animatronics in this game. As a whole, they are clearly meant to be an unreality version of their real counterparts. The teeth, the decay, the odd mechanism designs, the stalking through the halls of just a house, and their names being Nightmare all point to these animatronics not being real, but figments of someone's imagination. Someone's nightmare. But whose? Who is so scared of this particular batch of animatronics that they dream of these horrible versions of them for 8 nights in a row? I'm not sure, but I think diving more into the game will reveal an answer. Let's quickly go over some secrets in this game. There are relatively few secrets in this game, so this section will be short. The first of the bunch happens when you look at the bed. On rare occasions, an IV, a pill bottle, and flowers can be seen on the left side of the bed. This indicates to me that whomever's subconscious we are wandering is someone sick or dying, and parts of their reality is leaking into the nightmare. The next secrets are all audios that can play to disorient the player during the night. You can hear dogs, random breathing, doors slamming, and pots and pans rattling. Although that last one has a gameplay mechanic by telling the player that Chica is in the kitchen. These are all pretty normal for nightmares, besides the pots and pans being mysteriously similar to what happens in FNAF 1 when Chica goes into the kitchen. Now, there's one more audio that can play that really raised an eyebrow. Rarely, a distorted version of Phone Guy's voice can be heard in the ether. Specifically, the Night 1 phone call of FNAF 1. There's some pretty big leaps you can take from this one detail as well as the hospital imagery as to the context of this entire game, and I probably will do that soon, but I want to talk about the biggest part of this game that I have been itching to talk about for a while. Let's talk about the minigames. There are 7 minigames in this game alongside a final cutscene. I'm going to briefly summarize them all before going into my analysis. The first of these minigames occur before Night 1 and begins with the text, 5 days until the party. A Fredbear plush shows up on screen and delivers some dialogue. What did he do this time? He locked you in your room again. Don't be scared. I'm here with you. Afterwards, you play as a young child in your bedroom with your 4 plush toys in the corner, a set of drawers, and a bed with a Fredbear plush on top of it. I say Fredbear and not Golden Freddy because of the hat and tie on this plush. It's purple, which matches Fredbear, not the decrepit Golden Freddy of the future, but we'll get into that later. The plush seems to speak to the young crying child and follows their movements with its eyes. These are my friends, is what the child says when interacting with the plush toys of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. The child knocks loudly on the door, attempting to get out. With no response, and the door still locked, the child falls to the ground and cries. The Fredbear plush says, "Tomorrow is another day." The next minigame happens after you beat Night 1. It begins with the text, 4 days until the party. You begin in the bedroom again, and the Fredbear plush has this to say. You know he is hiding again. He won't stop until you find him. Exiting your bedroom, you find a room with a big grandfather clock, and the Fredbear plush has followed you inside. To the right is a room very similar to yours, but with a pink color scheme rather than blue. There's a big pink flower on the wall, and what looks to be a small, doll version of the destroyed Mangle animatronic. Moving to the left is a room with a couch and a large TV. A boy in a large foxy mask is hiding behind there and scares the child when he approaches. This is seemingly the person who locked you in your room and is hiding until you find him, as this Fredbear plush warned about. Once again, the child falls to the ground, crying. And once again, the Fredbear plush says, "Tomorrow is another day." The next minigame occurs after beating Night 2. It begins with the text, 3 days until the party. You wake up within Fredbear's family diner this time, with the voice of the Fredbear plush in your ear. He left without you. He knows that you hate it here. You are right beside the exit. If you run, you can make it. Hurry. Run towards the exit. When the child gets up to leave, a man in a Fredbear costume comes forward to block the door, seemingly just doing his job. The Fredbear plush gives you quick advice. It's too late. Hurry the other way and find someone who will help. You know what will happen if he catches you. Moving to the left shows another area of Fredbear's family diner, with tables, balloons, and ribbons. The shadows of Fredbear and Spring Bonnie are cast onto the wall. The Fredbear plush gives a final push for the child. You can find help if you can get past them. You have to be strong. In a moment of weakness, the child returns to the area where he came from and sees a purple, shadowy man in a closed-off room, putting a Spring Bonnie head onto someone before closing the door. As the child continues to attempt an escape, the man in the Fredbear costume catches up, and the child falls to the ground, crying. Tomorrow is another day. The next minigame happens after Night 3 and begins with the text, 2 days until the party. The child once again wakes up in Fredbear's family diner. The Fredbear plush says the following. He hates you. You have to get up. You can get out this time, but you have to hurry. If the child goes deeper into the restaurant, the Fredbear plush will stop you. No, don't you remember what you saw? The exit is the other way. Hurry and leave. Outside, you can see a mural of Fredbear outside of his diner. The Fredbear plush is hiding behind a car, watching. You can speak to a child with a little Bonnie doll in their hand, and they say the following. Where's your plush toy? Mine is Spring Bonnie. My daddy says I have to be careful with him or I will pinch my finger. He is a finger trap, he says. Moving down, you come across another child, a girl with pigtails. The Fredbear plush is now masquerading as a flower. The girl will say the following: "You'd better watch out. I hear they come to life at night, and if you die, they hide your body and never tell anyone. Why do you look so worried? See you at the party. Ha ha ha." Moving down again, you see a laughing child, a bit older than the rest, with the Fredbear plush in the sewers. The boy will say, "Aren't you that kid that always hides under the table and cries?" "Ha ha ha, no one else is scared. Where are you? Stop being such a baby." You can find a playground nearby with a girl with some toys around her. She will say, "Why are you crying? Don't you like my toy collection?" Moving to the left, you'll see a boy with a balloon who will say, "Are you going to the party? Everyone is going to the party." "Oh wait, you have to go. It's your birthday. Haha." After speaking with all of the children, you go home, and the Fredbear plush is waiting for you on the couch. Be careful. You can turn the TV on, which turns on a show called Fredbear and Friends, dated 1983. On the screen is Fredbear and Foxy together, and the rest of the core four by themselves. If you go back to your room, the older boy in the Foxy mask will scare you again from underneath your bed. Tomorrow is another day. The next minigame occurs after night 4, with text that reads, "One day until the party." The child is stuck in what looks like the parts and service room of Fredbear's family diner. Around him are animatronic parts of Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. The child screams for help. "Please let me out. Please, please let me out." No one lets him out. The Fredbear plush does not say, "Tomorrow is another day." The next minigame happens after night 5, 0 days until the party. In Fredbear's family diner, on the day of the child's birthday party, he sits, crying, surrounded by his brother and his bully friends. The one with the Bonnie mask says, "Wow, your brother's kind of a baby, isn't he?" The older brother replies, "It's hilarious. Why don't we help him get a closer look? He will love it." "No, please. Come on, guys. Let's give this little man a lift. He wants to get up close and personal." The child squirms and struggles in the grip of the stronger boys, pleading, "No, I don't want to go." You heard the little man. He wants to get even closer. Ha ha ha. Hey guys, I think the little man says he wants to give Fredbear a big kiss. On 3. 1, 2. The jaws of Fredbear clamp shut around the head of the child, and we sit in silence for a moment. The minigame after night 6 begins with our brother reaching out. The child is shrouded in darkness. "Can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me. I'm sorry." The Fredbear plush begins to speak to the child again. "You're broken." Foxy disappears. "We are still your friends." Chica disappears. "Do you still believe that?" Bonnie disappears. "I'm still here." Freddy disappears. "I will put you back together." The child slumps forward a little bit. As the child fades from view, a flat line can be heard. The child has died. So there's a whole lot there to parse. I want to begin with what literally happens in the minigames. From now on, I am calling these characters Little Brother and Big Brother, or Lil Bro and Big Bro for short. Over the course of 6 days leading up to his birthday party at Fredbear's family diner, Little Brother is tormented by Big Brother. He scares him, he bullies him, and makes him cry constantly. Little Brother absolutely hates it in Fredbear's family diner. He saw something that scared him so deeply that he hides under the tables and cries when he is there. On the day of his party, the little brother is forced into Fredbear's mouth. He squirms and cries, and the jaws of Fredbear clamp down, hard. The impact crushes the little brother's head. The next day, in the hospital, he dies. This is a tragic story, and even with its 8-bit aesthetics, really struck me for some reason. It's such a mundane death, a complete accident, made by a stupid kid who didn't know any better. I don't think the older brother meant for this to happen, but his ego took it too far and ended up killing his little brother. I doubt he even had malice towards him in the first place, if I'm reading the ending correctly. He just tormented him because it was fun to see his reaction, because that's what older brothers do. It's awful, truly awful. But let's get back to the overarching story here. First of all, how do I know that this takes place in Fredbear's family diner? Well, we know that Fredbear and Spring Bonnie performed in that place together, and who do we see but them on stage? We also see Fredbear on the TV with his purple hat and bow, which confirms that this animatronic we see is indeed Fredbear. We also know that Fredbear is a springlock suit. We know this because of previous info from FNAF 3, of course, but we also know this because we see Fredbear performing on stage autonomously and worn as a suit by this employee. We know from FNAF 3 that moisture can cause springlocks to fail, and when the child was thrust into the jaws of Fredbear, he was crying. The tears made the springlocks jut out at full force and crush his head. Let's get back to the little brother for a bit. We know a few details about him. We know that he hates Fredbear's family diner because of something he saw in the restaurant. But we also know that he loves the Freddy Fazbear Pizza crew of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. It also seems like he doesn't mind the character of Fredbear, but rather the restaurant itself, or maybe the animatronics. The little brother is also egged on by a Fredbear plushie that has some interesting characterization to say the least. He seems to be attempting to comfort the child while also trying to motivate him to take action, to move, or at least to warn him of the danger of his brother. But that begs the question, how does he know all the things he's saying? Or, more pointedly, what exactly is this plush toy? We can say with some certainty that the plush toy is not real, in the sense that it's an actual toy that everyone can see. It feels much more supernatural, much more spirit-like. It watches from a distance, hiding in nonsensical spaces to make sure the child is okay, and it seems to know a lot about the child, and the brother. To me, this initially read as an inner monologue for the little brother, a voice in his head directing him to the best place, but this view will be challenged later on. Also, it's best to mention this now, but this house we see is not the layout of the gameplay house. We'll get back to that later. There are two lines of the Fredbear plush that I'm really interested in. The first is, "It's too late. Hurry the other way and find someone who will help. You know what will happen if he catches you." This occurs in the third minigame and is said after the exit is blocked by the employee wearing the Fredbear suit. At first, I didn't know who this was referring to. I thought it was perhaps the brother, but on further inspection, it seems to be referring to Fredbear. And if that's the case, what exactly will happen if he catches us? The second line is, "No, don't you remember what you saw? The exit is the other way. Hurry and leave." What did the child see that the Fredbear plush is trying to protect him from? My guess is that it has something to do with Fredbear. The child saw Fredbear doing something bad. Something that he knows will happen to him if he is caught. What was actually seen, I'm not so sure of just yet. There are a bunch of kids outside the restaurant that you can talk to, 5 in total. 2 of these children let us know that the little brother is horrified by Fredbears, but that his birthday party will be there, the countdown for which we have been seeing at the beginning of these minigames. The other 3, however, directly reference the first 3 games of this franchise. "Where's your plush toy? Mine is Spring Bonnie. My daddy says I have to be careful with him or I will pinch my finger. He is a finger trap, he says." This is clearly referencing Springtrap, the killer-turned-possessed Springlock animatronic. "You'd better watch out. I hear they come to life at night, and if you die, they hide your body and never tell anyone. Why do you look so worried? See you at the party." This is what we hear from the phone guy in the first game, even referencing the somewhat humorous missing persons policy. "Why are you crying? Don't you like my toy collection?" This is meant to reference the toy animatronics of FNAF 2, even having the little Chica doll missing her beak like she did in FNAF 2. So what is all of this implying? Why are there references to these events, all of which don't seem to have even happened yet? Well, first of all, let's tackle when these events even take place. The TV says the show was copyrighted in 1983. While this could be a rerun or something, a direct year being placed in this game is extremely rare and feels intentional. For this reason, I'm going to stick with these events taking place in 1983. However, I can be flexible in future theories. That is long before FNAF 2, which takes place in 1987, and the first game to take place in the timeline thus far. So, what's going on? Well, let's think about the medium that this story is being told in. It's a minigame, with graphics that can be reasonably said to be NES and Atari level. What else have we seen occur in this context? Happiest Day from FNAF 3. And my theory of those games was that they were being supernaturally influenced by the puppet to help the lost souls of the 5 missing children mentioned all the way in FNAF 1 find peace. We see those souls interact. We even play as the puppet's soul. So could this be the same situation? A spirit manipulating a game to give a soul a happy ending? I think the answer is yes. And what soul is doing this deed? None other than Golden Freddy. We've seen time after time Golden Freddy holding more than the normal amount of control and supernatural power, in the same range as the puppet and Springtrap. We've seen them change posters, put images in the eyes of people, even manifest without being able to move physically. All this points to Golden Freddy being powerful as the puppet. Not only that, but Golden Freddy is the one spirit that I was fairly dubious on actually achieving peace in Happiest Day, with them getting a washed out gray cake and being missing in the final good ending screen. And what is the mysterious being in the minigames we play as in this game? A plush Fredbear, the animatronic that would one day become Golden Freddy. Yes, the minigames in this game are being influenced by Golden Freddy in order to help the spirit of the little brother find peace. It's why so many elements of the outside world have leaked in, because this Golden Freddy spirit has seen it all. But if that's true, there's two lingering things we need to address. Number one, why is Golden Freddy unsuccessful? We saw through the week that no matter how hard the plushie pushed, the little brother would find his fated destiny in the jaws of Fredbear. Golden Freddy couldn't change that for him. And number two, why is this child's spirit not at rest in the first place? Now, upon seeing the little brother get bitten, I had one knee-jerk reaction. This child is the spirit of Golden Freddy, and this child is the one we play as in FNAF 4. These are his nightmares as he dies. But there are a lot of holes in this theory. To begin, the killer explicitly killed 5 children and stuffed them into suits. We know this for almost certain. The little brother was not killed, and was not lured away to a back room. He died in an accident. So no matter what, there has to be a kid possessing Golden Freddy that isn't the little brother. On top of that, there are 7th and 8th nights to this game, after the little brother has already died. I think this detail is meant to show that our player cannot be this child. A dead person cannot have nightmares. But then, what happened? What is the deal with this younger brother? Why aren't they at rest? Well, I want to talk about something I mentioned earlier. The fact that the puppet, Springtrap, and Golden Freddy seem to be on another level of supernatural ability than the rest. We've seen this already be proven, with the puppet and Golden Freddy being able to warp reality to their needs, and Springtrap being able to summon the phantom animatronics like stands. But why? My theory is that it has something to do with the closeness of the body to the object it's possessing. Springtrap was literally killed by the suit, encased in it forever. The 5 children were killed and then placed into their respective suits. But what if the Golden Freddy kid was killed in the suit? And what if the puppet child was literally holding their puppet toy when they were killed? It would make sense why these 3 seem to be so much more powerful, while the others were simply given life, and that's it. There's a stronger connection if the animatronic and body are together in death. Another point. We know that souls aren't at rest when they've become attached to an animatronic, as can be seen by the FNAF 3 Follow Me minigames. So, that could only mean that the little brother is in that situation if he's similarly stuck in limbo. He's attached to an animatronic, the Fredbear animatronic. It's why the Fredbear plush can speak directly to him, can guide him, can give him his happiest day. They're in the same body. There are 2 spirits within this animatronic, the 5th child of the group of 5 killed, and little brother. It's why Golden Freddy has seemed so erratic. There are 2 competing spirits in there. It's also why Golden Freddy couldn't be given a happiest day. Not only was there another spirit who wasn't being put to rest, but he had no happiest day to return to at Fredbear's family diner. He hates that place. And removing the death of the day doesn't make it any better. It was still torture before that. But now that leaves us with why. Why are these characters being introduced as Little Brother and Big Brother? Well, it's because what I've been saying all along is true, or at least partially true. I have been saying since the beginning that our player character has to be a relative of the Golden Freddy spirit, since it keeps reaching out to us, saying, it's me, begging to be recognized. I just got the spirit wrong. I always thought it was the 5th missing child, the one within Golden Freddy, but it wasn't the 5th missing child. It was a separate one, still attached to that animatronic, the spirit of the little brother. When the puppet was giving life to the animatronics that fateful night, they never imagined another death was linked to the Golden Freddy suit. They accidentally resurrected not only the soul they meant to, the 5th murdered kid, but another victim, the victim of a terrible accident, now forced to live in the machine that they were terrified of. And who gets mysterious dreams, drawing them to Freddy's? None other than Big Brother. He feels the presence of his little brother, and out of guilt and love, tries to save him, and uncovers this entire horrible, twisted story when he goes investigating, and the 3 FNAF games are him trying to stop the tale of death woven by the Fazbear name. Our player character in FNAF 1, Night 7 of FNAF 2, and FNAF 3 is Big Brother, the bully. And who are the only two characters depicted as a duo in this entire game? Fredbear and Foxy on the TV, the little brother and the big brother. Wow, that was a lot. The minigames here really did a lot of heavy lifting, didn't they? This is where I'd like some feedback, because I know this theory seems far-fetched. Do you think Little Brother is connected to Golden Freddy, or am I forcing that connection? And do you think Big Brother being the player character makes any sense? Please keep spoilers limited to FNAF 1 through 4 because I'm still solving this one game at a time. Now that we've covered that, I'd like to transition into my final theory, where I'll cover how this all fits into my previous theories, what the enigmatic box is all about, don't worry, I didn't forget about that, and what FNAF 4 is really trying to tell us. Like the last video, I will be going pretty quickly over the things that I've already talked about in previous Final Theory sections that haven't had any changes to them. So if you want more detail on how I got to certain conclusions, you can binge the series thus far in the playlist linked in the description. So, let's get right into it. In the late 70s or early 80s, Fredbear's Family Diner opened, with the appeal of animatronic characters being able to entertain children and serve food. This was done via a mechanism called spring locks, which allowed these hulking robots to transform into wearable suits for employees to walk around in. Once inside, employees had to be very careful to not re-engage the spring locks. If they did, then the suit would transform back into animatronic mode, and the mechanical parts would pierce through the body of whoever was inside. It was so dangerous, in fact, that safe rooms were developed to make sure there was a place for employees to bleed out privately, so as not to disturb the guests, of course. Fredbear's Family Diner became very successful, and a company was created around it, Fazbear Entertainment. They opened a new restaurant with new mascots, the Springlock versions of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. There was also a rudimentary puppet animatronic inside, made for the smaller kids of the group. Freddy's began to become so successful that the original restaurant, Fredbear's Family Diner, became a sister location to the main Freddy's. Overall, though, business was booming. Toys and merchandise were being manufactured, and a whole TV show was made about these iconic characters. However, something went wrong at Fredbear's Family Diner. Inevitably, a springlock failure occurred. Likely in the Fredbear animatronic, the spring locks were set off, and the employee inside was punctured with metal all over his body. This horrific accident was witnessed by a child, Little Brother. Little Brother was traumatized by this vision, and the animatronics that he once loved became an object of terror. Unfortunately, he lived very close to the establishment, and his birthday party was set to be in a week there. This older child is Big Brother. Big Brother tormented Little Brother, scaring him in their house, locking him in rooms, making his life a living hell. This all culminated in the day of Little Brother's birthday party. Big Brother and his bully friends picked up Little Brother, brought him to Fredbear, and put him in the jaw. The mouth clamped down, and after an extended coma, Little Brother died. While the springlock failure was a less-known event, the death of Little Brother was seen by everyone in the restaurant. The scandal caused Fredbear's to shut down. And now, the story plays out very similarly to what I have described before. At Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, not too long after this happened, our killer struck. Fired from his job at Fredbear's Family Diner, he was angry and took out his anger outside of the restaurant that left him unemployed. Trapped outside of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, a lone child was murdered, and the killer sped away before being caught. This child's soul was linked to the rudimentary puppet animatronic inside, possessing it. But this wasn't the last tragedy to take place in this restaurant. Using the suit he knew well from his previous job, Spring Bonnie, the killer lured children into the safe room of Freddy's, now with a new cast of pure animatronics, not springlocks. The killer murdered 5 children and hid their bodies in the animatronics of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and the old decommissioned Fredbear, now just a limp suit with most of its springlock mechanisms removed after a thorough inspection after the little brother was bit. Cameras were able to catch the killer as he exited, but he was released since no evidence of the bodies were found. The puppet, seeing this carnage, decided to give these 5 spirits life, a second chance to take revenge on their killer, to take back what they once lost. But the puppet made a mistake, and summoned 2 souls to the body of Fredbear, the 5th child and Little Brother, both inhabiting the same suit. The animatronics began to reek, with blood and pus coming out of the suits. This Freddy's was closed down for health violations. A new second Freddy's was created with a line of toy animatronics to distance themselves from the tragedy of the past. These toys were created with facial recognition and connection to police databases, to make sure another tragedy wouldn't hit Fazbear. Their wallet couldn't take another beating. To save money, the old animatronics were going to be refurbished, but the remains of the children were found. Fazbear hid the evidence, and instead just stripped the old robots for parts to put inside the toy animatronics. But The spirits were attached to those metal mechanisms that they were putting inside the toys, so the toy animatronics began to act strange, staring at adults, distrustfully. The new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opened in 1987, and our killer took the job as the night watchman for the first week to scope out the building, perhaps looking for his next avenue for murder. But the animatronics were acting odd, attempting to get into the office. He transferred to the day shift position in the following week, leaving Jeremy Fitzgerald to take the night guard position. During his week as night guard, the killer returned and somehow managed to get a hold of his old spring Bonnie suit again. He lured another 5 children into the restaurant and killed them. Instead of putting them in animatronics, he hid them somewhere else. So even while the puppet pleaded to save them, the simple answer was, you can't. Their bodies were not close enough to the animatronics for them to be summoned back into them, and they were simply laid to rest. After evidence was found of this deed, the restaurant went into lockdown since it's now a crime scene. They had a birthday party in the morning, though, and Jeremy Fitzgerald was set to be the day shift guard. Unfortunately, the animatronics were extremely dangerous after witnessing another massacre by their killer and not being able to stop it. So, when they see someone in a guard's uniform, the same uniform that the killer was wearing, they attack. Mangle is the one to bite off Jeremy's frontal lobe, an event now called the Bite of 87. That night, Fritz Smith enters the building as a night guard. He was not necessarily meant to be there, and was fired for tampering with the animatronics, but even so, the restaurant was shut down immediately afterward, so it didn't amount to much. Fritz came into this job for one reason: to find answers. He had been receiving visions in his mind of animatronics, and the phrase, "it's me." He investigated by getting the job at Freddy's, and found part of what he was looking for: his little brother. Tucked away in the subconscious of Golden Freddy was his little brother, reaching out. After all this time, yes, I think that Fritz Smith, and later Mike Schmidt, is Big Brother. Unfortunately, he didn't get all the answers he wanted, and was forced out before he could understand. Luckily, a very low-budget Freddy's was created as a last-ditch effort, and Fritz immediately took the night guard position again, this time under the name of Mike Schmidt, to avoid being recognized as the guard that got fired at the last place. He works his week and is fired again for tampering with the animatronics, clearly trying to find answers to not only his brother's presence now, but the fact that all of these animatronics are haunted. But he's fired, and the restaurant closes down, with all of the animatronics inside, abandoned, rotting. However, the killer wasn't done with these animatronics. Long after the closure of this Freddy's, the killer returns, aiming to destroy these animatronics once and for all. He hides in the safe room, and when the animatronics trying to kill him can't enter because of their programming, he dismantles them when they error out. But with the souls now freed, they can enter the safe room with the help of the Golden Freddy spirit. They scare the killer back into the old decrepit Spring Bonnie suit, and the years of neglect and moisture activate the spring locks, jabbing into the killer, killing him. But the killer ultimately possesses this animatronic, becoming Springtrap. In the time between Freddy's closing and the haunted house attraction of Fazbear's Fright opening, Mike/Fritz/Big Brother keeps having horrific nightmares. Dark, unreal reflections of the horrors he has seen in his time. He is stalked by nightmare versions of the creatures he has seen in the past. 6 in total. 5, representing the Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Golden Freddy spirits. And a final one. One dark, horrible nightmare. The nightmare that's been haunting him since his adolescence. The guilt of an accident gone horribly wrong, manifesting as a monster. A manifestation of his brother. Later, when Fazbear's Fright does open, he immediately takes the security guard position. At this point, the souls of the 5 children are lost, scattered. The puppet, seeing their pain as a personal responsibility, goes out to find them peace. By using their supernatural abilities, they augment the many games Fazbear Entertainment made over the years to give peace to these children. But the Golden Freddy spirit can't seem to leave, can't seem to be perfectly at peace. And it's because there's another presence inside of their body, the spirit of Little Brother. Because of this, the 5th child attempts to do what the puppet did, give the little brother his own happiest day. But it doesn't work. All it does is make him relive the trauma leading up to his death. Unsuccessful, the Golden Freddy spirit, as well as Little Brother, still roam alongside the puppet. In Fazbear's Fright, Fritz/Mike/Big Brother aids the puppet in freeing the souls, and when that's done, he burns the place to the ground, after realizing that the killer reincarnated is haunting the halls. Even so, Springtrap survives. Big Brother's journey is not over, as a few souls and the killer are still out there. He won't rest until he has stopped all of this madness, and then, and only then, he will open a trunk he's kept for some time. inside of which are the memories of his youth, memories of his brother, sentiments of a life long gone after a single, idiotic, brutal mistake. Well, that's FNAF 4, everybody. Done and dusted. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Please leave your thoughts and theories in the comments, especially about Golden Freddy, Big Brother, and the locked box. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing. My next goal is 250 subscribers, and next time, I'll be continuing this nightmare in Five Nights at Freddy's sister location. Thank you for watching, and happy learning.